Hi there, welcome to another edition of Plugged In Rewind, where we look at movies from the elder days. Usually they're not quite as old as
elder
this
as
one.
these, yeah. This one fits me perfect, even though I was not around in the 1930s.
Are you
but
sure?
Still,
Are you
I mean, I may
sure?
look it, but no. But I do love these older films.
So just to let you know, these are movies where we actually go back, we look at an old movie, we see, it usually is a really good one where we can talk about some of the artistic aspects of the film, but we can also talk about some of the theological elements of the film. And it's kind of interesting because when we were first talking about this movie, which is, by the way, The Bride of Frankenstein, 1935. That is before, I would imagine, almost any of you were born. But when we were talking about this, we were kind of saying, well, let's just watch it and see if there's any theological stuff that we can bring to the table.
Oh, baby.
Oh, wow. I was really surprised.
Well, it's a fabulous film. And I think before we even dive into the film itself, we probably ought to talk about the history just a bit.
Yes.
Now, we all know that talkies came into effect in the late 1920s, 1927.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
All know this.
1927. And that was the first time that they actually talked on film. Jazz Singer, Wings, those kind of films. And Frankenstein was just a mere few years later in 1931. And
based on a Mary Shelley novel.
That's right. And Frankenstein happened to be, whether you know it or not, one of the big mega hits of the 1930s. I mean, it was the Star Wars of the 1930s. It was massive, and it was so big.
Which means it made like $3,000.
Yeah, that's right, in pennies. No, it was huge, and it was so big that the studio had to have a sequel. You know, in fact, it was so big. In the first movie, in the opening credits, Boris Karloff, who plays the monster,
right.
Boris Karloff's name wasn't even there. It just said, the monster, ... So nobody knew who he was. And it made him such a mega star that by the time they did Bride of Frankenstein, the movie opened with Karloff.
Yeah, not
huge
Boris
yeah,
Karloff.
Just huge letters, Karloff, in Bride of Frankenstein. So, I mean, he became this huge star. Anyway, it was such a huge movie that they wanted James Whale, the director, to come back and direct it. And James Whale said, nah. You know, he'd already done his he'd done his thing.
Frankenstein's monster died at the end of
that's
Frankenstein.
Right. Frankenstein dies.
And by the way, it is Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein is actually the scientist.
Doctor. Right. So Dr. Frankenstein.
It's pronounced Frankenstein.
Who sort of made the monster out of parts, cadavers, and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, at the end of the film, they're both dead.
Right.
According to the end of the film, and the windmill that they were in is burning to the ground. And so that was it. And the director said, I don't want anything more. And they said, you've got to do this. I mean, actually, you know, when you wave a dollar bill in front of a studio, they'll say sequel. And that's exactly
Even
what
back
happened.
in 1930s.
That's right. And so they finally persuaded him to do it by giving him this massive budget, giving him a big paycheck. And why didn't he want to do it, by the way? It's because he, who was actually associated in a lot of theater things and trying to make his mark in movies, he wanted to be an A-lister. He wanted to, in fact, he had these A-list directors that he sought to be like. And these days, when we think back, none of those people we even know. But we do know James Whale because
really
of Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein.
It is telling, actually, when you think about it. And you can make an argument for the same thing today, right? Where you have these Oscar-winning movies, these Oscar-nominated movies that no one ever sees, you know, which are the high-prestige things. Back in the day here, you know, you had some very prestigious directors attached to some very prestigious films. Horror was not a prestige
horror was
thing.
lowball, and he didn't want anything to do with that. But they prompted him to come back, and he said, okay, you give me control. You let me do what I want to do, and you give me a big budget, and I'll do it. And they said, yes, sir, and yes, sir. We are not worthy. And so he got what he wanted, and he came back to do this film. And in some ways, in fact, I would almost say in all ways, this is one of those movies where the sequel, Bride of Frankenstein, is far superior to the first film. As big as Frankenstein was in the theaters, this one, it didn't sell as much, to be honest, but
Right.
it was a better film.
Right. So, and that, I think that's sort of the consensus, right? I am a big original Frankenstein guy. I thought that was in the world of Universal horror flicks, which included Dracula, Frankenstein, The
Invisible
Man, all those. Frankenstein, I thought, was really the best made of those movies. And it really did have kind of an emotional pop to it that
Right.
a lot of these others didn't.
Well, it did for Universal was sort of introduce this golden age.
Right.
Let's face it, all those films through the 30s, that you could call that the golden age of monster movies.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they're far better than the things we're cranking out these days.
I think that's really viable. I think that you're talking about an era where these particular movies, these Frankenstein movies, they have a little bit more oomph. And I think that part of that is because of the kind of the philosophical, theological weight behind them, right?
Yes.
So just to unpack a little bit, the original Frankenstein, you likely know the story of the original Frankenstein. It's about this mad scientist who creates, as you said, this human being from body
From
parts.
dead parts.
Re-energizes him through the magic of electricity. And then you hear the famous line, It's alive!
It's alive!
Yeah.
So right there you have, and even Mary Shelley, the original writer who makes sort of a cameo within The Bride of Frankenstein,
Yeah.
mentions that it was always meant to be sort of this rumination
Yeah.
on man playing God.
A moral message.
Correct.
But see, that's key here. A lot of people, when we start talking about Bride of Frankenstein, a lot of people, they look at that sort of prologue scene where you've got Mary Shelley with Lord Byron and her husband Percy Shelley, and they think, why are they doing this? Let's get
Yes.
to the monster. Come on. But the fact is, that opening scene is perfect for this film.
Yeah.
That opening scene introduces everything and helps us see what we're gonna experience. In fact, you were talking about Mary Shelley, and she says that element about the publishers don't understand the book because they don't realize that it was a moral lesson, that it was about the punishment given to men who tried to emulate God.
Right.
And that message right there sets us up when we're watching this film to say, okay, guys, listen, audience, there's more here than you think there is. This isn't just a monster movie. This is a movie with messages, and it has some pretty big messages to share. And that was one of the reasons that James Wall came back and did it.
Yeah.
Is because he could go a little bit further, and he could make things bigger, and he could raise these bigger questions. And there's some pretty massive moral and ethical questions in this film.
Yeah, so and we'll just unpack a little bit of the story, just so that people have an understanding. The movie sort of picks up where the last one left off. They actually had to refilm part of the conclusion so that it would make sense within context, because as you said, both of the main characters died at the end of the first one.
But they changed it. They changed it, and they basically said, okay, now the monster throws Frankenstein
Good old
off
Victor.
the top, and you think he's dead, but he's only mostly dead. He's really still alive. Put him on a stretcher, get him home. Then so that's basically how the new film opens up. And not only that, but the monster didn't exactly die. He fell through this crumbling windmill down into a river that happened to be underneath it. And
Very
so
convenient.
He's okay.
Very convenient.
He's singed, he's burned, he's scarred, but he's good.
He is also mostly dead.
Yeah.
But
he's all
just
dead,
by
actually,
just sort of by his nature. So both of our main characters are back alive, which is nice for them theoretically. Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, he's ready to leave with his wife.
As soon as you're strong enough, we'll go away and forget all this horrible experience.
Right.
And give up all of this resurrection business completely.
Well, he first starts off talking about the fact that, what an experience this was, because he thinks the monster's dead. What an experience this was. I mean, I was given this opportunity, I got the secret of life. Do you think God planned this? I mean, he just comes right out and asks this.
Yeah, and his wife says, no.
No, it is not.
No,
You put
no.
those thoughts out of your mind.
Henry, don't say those things. Don't think them. It's blasphemous and wicked.
In fact, she says, this is all temptation from the devil. And you don't expect somebody coming right out with messages like that at the top of the film. But he's going, okay, all right, yeah, I sort of see that. He's being drawn to the light, the good side.
Right.
And that's when, you want to go from there?
Dr. Proteus.
Pretorius.
Pretorius, excuse me.
Professor Pretorius, who
Professor-
just happened to be a professor of Frankenstein,
Yes.
and Henry Frankenstein's. It was one of his professors at university.
Yes. So he comes back on the scene and he has heard what Frankenstein has done. And he has done his own little experimentations, which is one of the worst parts of the movie. Let's be honest.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Keep
So-
going.
And he wants to encourage in air quotes, Frankenstein to join him in trying to develop a new type of life. Like Frankenstein, he does great things with corpses, right?
Yeah.
But essentially, Pretorius, he actually grows new life from
like a
seeds.
culture, and
Right.
that is a key element right there. When he said that, he said Pretorius said that because he's sharing all this with Frankenstein, and he says, you sort of patched together all these dead pieces.
Right.
I grew mine like nature intended.
Oh, yes.
Like nature
Yes.
intended from the seed. And he says that, but they don't explain that. But I was wondering, okay, now is this like fertilized egg outside of? Yeah. I mean, was he actually using human seed and growing these specimens from that? And because that's what it sort of implies.
And he does say, sort of within that same sort of narrative, he says, we can design something, if you like your Bible stories, in God's own image.
I also have created life, as we say, in God's own image.
Bingo. And another one of those massive flags saying, okay, there's more here than you think there is, And so in a sense, then they set up this relationship between Pretorius and
Frankenstein.
Like, what's that classic with Faust? Faust and
Mephistopheles.
And so Pretorius is the Mephistopheles guy who is sort of this demonic character who is always, because Frankenstein's ready to just get married, go live a happy life.
Yes.
But
give up all
Pretorius
this.
is saying, no, come. And he's promising him all this fabulous knowledge and pleasure that will come from it, just like the story, just like the Faustian story. And so it's a very interesting and complex relationship going on between the two of them.
Yeah.
And I keep interrupting your description of this movie.
This is great because you're absolutely right. One of the interesting things about Pretorius is that he actually often says, this is a line that is repeated throughout the movie, where he'll drink a little bit, he'll smoke a little bit, and he'll say, it's my only vice.
That's right.
So
gin was his first only device, and then smoking and
it underlines just sort of that Mephistophelian quality to him.
He's got all these vices, and he uses them to draw Frankenstein back over to the dark side.
So even though we've spent so much time talking about the setup really is Pretorius wants to create a bride for Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That is essentially what he wants to do.
In fact, I wrote down, I wanted to make sure I had the
all right, here we go. To the paper.
Pretorius has, in fact, in this scene right here, Pretorius has shown Henry Frankenstein his little creations. And they tend to be these little, what are they called, homunculi?
That's exactly right.
Little tiny miniature people. They're only a foot tall, and they're in these little jars. And there's a queen and a king and a pope or something like that, and they've got different, like 7 of them.
Which was just dumb.
No, I see. Here's the thing: is I thought it was interesting because he said he grew them as cultures from this seed.
Yeah.
But he couldn't create a lifelike version like Frankenstein.
Right. He couldn't do a full-size version.
And so he said this. He says, "Normal size has been my difficulty. You did achieve size. I need to work that out with you." And so essentially he's saying that together we can combine our efforts and come up with the perfect creation. And he quotes scripture saying, male and female, he made them.
Yes.
He created them. Why? And that is the indication that what Pretorius is after is creating a brand new race. He's not just after doing something cool and bringing life to something. He wants to create a male and a female like God did, and when Adam and Eve got together, they procreated mankind. He wants to procreate something brand new, and that would make him God and in control of all of it.
Well, and it's really interesting that you bring that up, because now we can switch over to the monster. Right.
Yeah.
Because as we said, the monster also survived. He is pretty much for most of the movie sort of running out on his own.
Yeah.
He is sometimes killing people because they're terrified of him.
Well, especially at the first, when they discover him down in that pit of water and stuff.
It was really grim. This is an old movie, but just a plugged-in warning, there is a lot of death in here. There is a lot of
Actually, not as much as Frankenstein, interestingly enough, but there is, especially at the beginning, because the father of the girl from where Frankenstein, the monster, threw the little girl in the water, which was shocking for so many people because it was a child.
Right.
Anyway, well, the father is there while the mill is burning down to the ground, and the father just needs to see the charred bones of this killer.
Right.
But he goes down there and actually
Yeah.
sees the creature, the monster who kills him and then kills his wife,
Yeah.
just for good measure.
Yeah, yeah. But it is interesting as you're talking about sort of these scientists wanting to be the creators of a new form of life, to be these godlike beings. You have their first creation, which you could point to as being their own version of Adam or their own version. And I think that the movie does this very explicitly at times, sort of this fallen Jesus-like figure. You have these sacrificial elements where you have these echoes of Frankenstein. He's tied to this pillar, and it looks, and he's
Well, with that one time when the whole crowd comes in and they tie him on a pole, and then they hoist the pole up, and he looks very much like a Jesus figure.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is purposeful.
Right.
And then they drop him into a big wagon and that sort of thing.
And it is pretty fascinating because when you look at the movie as it's constructed, you see, yes, there are these Christ-like elements to it, but because his creators... his creator was a fallen man.
Right.
He is a fallen Christ.
Creation. Yes, indeed.
I think that is a really, really important thing. But the other thing that I find so intriguing about just the character of Frankenstein's monster is he is a monster, right? He kills people. And yet there is an innocence to him.
And that is one of those elements that I think some people miss in this second film. Is that, in fact, even Karloff, I think, missed in a way, because he didn't want the monster to talk.
Right.
He was very into the pantomime and how that, worked in his favor as an actor.
Right.
He didn't want the monster to talk, but it was necessary, actually, in Mary Shelley's case, in her story. The monster is quite articulate.
He's quite articulate. He's well read.
Yeah. In any case, in this one, basically the creature comes upon this blind hermit in the woods, and because he's hungry and he's looking, people are chasing after him, and he comes upon this blind hermit who has been all by himself. He's been sort of ostracized from society because he's blind, and he's been all by himself. And he tells us, the hermit does, that he's been praying for someone, for God to give him someone that he can connect with.
We see a crucifix in the background.
Exactly, in his little hut. And then along comes this creature, and the blind hermit can't see him, so there's nothing scary about him. He welcomes him in, he gives him a meal, and then it's implied that this creature spends some time with him.
Yeah.
Where not only are
Teaches him how to talk.
Yeah,
He doesn't know
exactly.
how to talk
Bit
before
by
he
bit,
arrives.
he gives him a rudimentary sense of language. And why is that important? Because what it's doing, you were talking about this fallen man creating this fallen creature. And what we're seeing happen because of the goodness of this one man, the hermit, who is a godly man.
Yeah.
In fact, he prays in front of the creature when he helps him into a bed.
Our Father, I thank thee, that in thy great mercy thou hast taken pity on my great loneliness.
Because he's wounded. He helps the creature into a bed and he prays for him and he thanks God for sending them to him a friend.
Yes.
That they could be together and comfort one another. And the creature cries. The prayer is so powerful that it makes him cry. And essentially what happens, what they're saying within the context of this story is there's this fallen killer, a raging monster who is tamed, who learns about good
Yeah.
and bad from
Yeah.
this hermit, who begins to find that life can be good.
Right.
And that friendship and companionship is a treasure.
Yeah. It's really fascinating as you watch this movie go, because you find the monster when he finds that element of kindness. When he finds that kindness, it brings the kindness out to him.
Yep.
And it shows you that he could be better. And that's one of the most powerful messages in this movie. So,
And by the way, that scene with the hermit, I found that very emotional.
yeah.
There was some, it was partially the acting, but it was also the whole idea, the concept
Yeah.
of God answering this man's prayers, and in so doing, making something better for a fallen creature.
Right. It's too bad that the movie doesn't pay that off. As a Christian, you want that to be sort of a happily ever after moment where the blind man and the monster just hang out and they eat dinner together.
They're
all the time.
friends.
But that doesn't. The movie doesn't allow that.
But here's the thing. I think there is an arc. There is something of a salvation arc that happens with the monster himself that we often don't recognize, and that is by the time we get to the end of the film, and I don't want to give everything away, but he has to make what, in his opinion, the monster's opinion. In other words, he's grown. There's a parallel thing that's going on. When we first see the monster, he's all scarred and his hair is burned off and he's got wounds and that sort of thing. And through the course of the film, we see him start to heal. We see the hair starting to grow on his head. And there's a synergy there because emotionally the same thing's happening to him. He's healing. He's growing. And by the time we get to the end of the film, he makes what, in his opinion, is a moral decision.
Yeah.
He makes a moral choice to destroy what he believes is foul and to let what he believes to be good live.
Yeah. We're going to have to spoil that because I think that's...
Do we have to go and tell what happens?
Spoiler warning. Just be aware. Because I do think that we've spent all this time talking about the movie, The Bride of Frankenstein. We actually haven't gotten to the bride.
Which is actually pretty indicative of the film because she's only in it for like 3 minutes.
She is in it for 3 minutes.
For 3
Everybody
minutes.
knows what she looks like. She has the crazy hair. It's a really cool image, but she is really on the screen for next to no time at all.
But
And did you know that she was actually Mary Shelley in the beginning?
yeah, of course.
Of course.
It's Elsa Lanchester.
Oh.
And there's a reason for that. Early on in the movie, Lord Byron says something to Mary Shelley about her being an angel, and she says, "You think so?" And so James Whale wanted a parallel. He wanted her to do both roles. In fact, he demanded that she do both roles, so that he could show that inside all of us is a little bit of monster. No matter
Oh, that's so good.
no matter how posh, no matter how pretty we were, there's a little bit of monster. And then she comes back as the bride creation, I
Yeah.
guess you could
Yeah.
say. And so the fact is, a lot of people have complained that here's this movie about the bride, but we only see her for 3 minutes. But it is truly, in my opinion, a wonderful 3 minutes.
It is certainly an incredibly powerful scene where you see her. And the cinematography, let's
Oh,
just mention
yeah.
the cinematography. Because this is black and white, you are able to do so much more with light and shadow than you do in color.
fact,
movies.
James Whale called it his Rembrandt
Yeah.
imagery and shots and lighting, because he created these stark shadows
Yeah.
and bright lights,
Yeah.
and he did it from a variety of different angles, and it's really striking, very striking.
Yeah, yeah. So to get into the spoiler part, right? So the bride comes to life.
Yeah.
And Frankenstein's monster meets her for the first time, and the bride hates him.
Well, and
Hates
see,
it.
Pretorius had sort of used the Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
He sort of said to the monster, "We'll make a friend for you,"
Yeah.
because he lost his hermit friend.
Yeah,
They took
yeah.
him away.
And he's just looking for
And
love.
so he's looking
for kindness.
in a way. And
he
that's,
really
that's
is.
exactly what he's looking for. And Pretorius says, "We'll make you a mate."
Yeah.
And and the creature thinks, "Good,
Good.
Yeah.
good." You know,
You do that so well.
Thank you. I've got the pate. Go ahead.
You were continue on. You were going.
Well, okay. So they reveal this bride, and of course she's beautiful.
right.
I mean, she's not all scarred and stapled.
Although she
like-
does have some pretty bad.
she has a couple of scars under here, but other than that, I think that Henry Frankenstein learned a lot from his first trip
Well, yeah,
through, and
yeah.
so his second
His
one is-
stitching is better.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. Anyway, she's got this shock of hair with these lightning bolts, white
Yeah.
stripes, and she's just this gorgeous creature that they reveal. They take all the wrappings off her, and there she stands.
She's still dressed.
Yes, yes.
Let's just.
In fact,
specify
she's
that.
dressed in almost like a wedding gown
Yes,
kind of thing.
Exactly.
But anyway, the creature, Frankenstein's creature, sees her and thinks, "Oh, mama, this is exactly what I was looking for. Not only can she befriend, but she look good too." And so he comes up, but she's having none of it. In fact, it's a really interesting sequence when we first are revealed, or she's revealed to us. You know, James Whale uses the camera angles
Yeah.
to show her face and her movements. She's got these like little bird-like movements that Elsa Lanchester did on purpose for this character. And by the way, one other thing we should say is that Pretorius built her brain, or grew her brain from scratch. See, like with Frankenstein, his brain came out of a cadaver, or with the creature. But with the bride, or the mate, she was a blank slate. And it's wonderful what James Whale and Elsa Lanchester do with that character, because the camera's on her tight, and she looks over at Henry Frankenstein, who's sort of like the first person she's ever seen. Her brain is programming everything as it goes, and we see these quick movements as she's looking around, trying to understand this new world. And she sees this man who's kind of handsome, and she's drawn to him. In fact, there's this one fabulous moment where when she first looks at him and they lock eyes, there's this little quick smile that starts to turn her lip up, and then it goes back down like she's not sure.
Yeah.
And he becomes her savior in a sense. And then the monster comes over, the creature,
Yeah.
who is abysmally ugly, you know, with big old staples and burns and scars, and compared to Henry, not a good take, you know. So she's instantly afraid of him. But the way they structured it in those 3 minutes, it is artistry. It really is one of those fabulous moments where you can't turn your eyes away from the screen. It's just
Yeah.
magnetically beautiful what they do,
Well,
and that tug and pull.
Again, it really does show Whale's ability to craft, in terms of the technical aspect of the filming of
Yes,
that scene.
yes.
It is a masterclass.
And one thing we haven't even mentioned was that there was no music in the original Frankenstein. This one is underscored all the way through with little motifs for each of the characters. So whenever you see the Frankenstein monster, there's this 5-note motif, like that sort of represents his growl. And whenever you see her, there's this 3-note motif that almost is like wedding bells. And so it's really interesting how the, what was his name, Franz Waxman, how he orchestrates this whole thing almost like an opera, where the whole film just pulls together in such beautiful ways and leads up to this moment.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. And just to hook onto that just for a minute, this is just 8 years after the first talking movie, so they're still trying to figure out what does music look like within
In fact,
the context of this.
I didn't look this up, but I don't know if anybody's ever really done a fully orchestrated film at that point.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It is an incredible, incredible scene, but it leads to, we're finally getting to the spoiler,
10 minutes later.
where the monster, he's rejected once again.
Right.
He's looking for a little kindness. He's looking for just some connection.
Yeah.
And the person who is made for him rejects him. And so eventually, why they built the laboratory like this, I do not know. But there's a lever that
if you pull it,
it will blow up the
everything
entire
blows
thing.
up.
Yeah. It's a little like the Death Star.
Maybe that's it.
You shoot the thing down, it just blows up.
Maybe that's where they got the idea.
So, but essentially, Frankenstein says he tells Dr. Frankenstein to leave, take his wife, and go.
Even though he doesn't really even like Frankenstein, because he really hates him for making him.
Right.
And the creature that he is and that everybody rejects and hates.
Yeah, but in the movie, he even talks about he feels that he is an abomination. He feels like he is death.
Right.
And so he feels that he is not worthy of life. And so he sends Dr. Frankenstein out.
And that's what I meant by the moral choice. He makes, in his opinion, this moral choice that the dead things should be dead and the living things, like Henry Frankenstein and his wife Elizabeth, who are a newly married couple, and promise the beginning of, who knows, they might have a family, children.
Right.
They have a life in front of them. He wants them to go. In fact, he says that, go.
You live. You live.
Go! You live!
And then he points to Pretorius. Now I'm forgetting his name. Pretorius, and he says, you stay.
Yeah.
We belong dead.
You stay. We belong dead.
Yeah.
It's
which is an interesting thing because clearly Pretorius is living, and yet he pronounces him as a dead thing.
Right.
Which is very interesting. Now, I think that you could definitely argue that the monster thought he was making a moral choice. For our viewers, it might be a little bit more questionable.
Because he kills them all. Yeah.
Exactly. Another interesting thing about Pretorius's name, I'm just going to mention, is, and I'm not sure whether this was
Even though
intentional.
we've butchered it all the way through.
Even though we've kept forgetting it, but is the idea that Pretorius sounds a little like Prometheus, which is the Greek god who stole fire, stole the secret of the gods. And there was a time in the movie where it talks about this life being the secret of God. Yeah. It is forbidden. So I thought that was sort of an interesting little echo as well.
Well, and there have been a lot of different groups that have tried to claim their message as a part of this film.
Right.
Feminism and LGBT groups and who've said, that's what this film is all about. It's about our causes. But the fact is that I think, in a way, when you limit it to those kinds of ideas, you in a way limit all of what James Whale accomplished with this film, because he's trying to make this bigger picture, the bigger picture statement about the choices we make, about the way as mankind we wrestle with trying to reach for God's glory. We wrestle, with science or whatever. We wrestle with these ideas of right and wrong. And those are the big picture ideas in this film.
Right. Right. I think that that's absolutely right. The other thing that appeals to me about this movie is that sense of the other. And that's one of the elements that sometimes groups latch onto.
Right.
They say, we are this marginalized community, and so we associate with this very sympathetic monster and how he's ostracized by everybody he comes across.
But it's a difficult thing to claim.
Right.
Because in the end, the monster says, no, I should be destroyed. So it's hard for them to pin their particular cause on this particular creature.
The thing that I love about that otherness message, from a Christian point of view, and I think the film does a beautiful job of showing this,
Yes.
is the idea that as Christians, we are meant to come alongside the other. We
Like
are
the
meant to
hermit did.
show, yeah, absolutely, and he is the greatest example of Christian love and charity that you see in this movie. He brings this monster, this literal monster, into his house. He feeds him, he teaches him, he cares for him. And I think that that's what we as Christians are called to do.
Yeah.
We are meant to look at sometimes the people who might scare society, the homeless, the sick, the people who are marginalized, and we bring them in and we show them something better.
Right.
And hopefully through our reflection, they see God beyond us. They see what powers us. They see our true creator.
Right. And I think that's a big statement that this film can be seen as communicating. Now, I will say, I want to throw this in here. I'm not suggesting that this film is laudatory necessarily about faith or
No.
about the church.
No.
Anything like that. In fact, just the opposite. There were stories about how early on in the production of this movie, they wanted to have the creature find a full life-size statue of Jesus, like a crucifix, in the graveyard, and he was going to try and
He
help.
does find it in the actual movie.
Yeah, but he doesn't do what they wanted him to do. They wanted him to go up and try and help it down, thinking
Right.
that you talk about the other, thinking that he was a victim of the crowd too.
Yeah.
And the censor said, "Oh no, you're not going to do that." So instead, he topples a statue of a priest or something like that.
Yeah.
But in other words, there are other messages that James Whale is throwing in here about his disdain for the church and for authority figures, and that's mirrored in a variety of ways too.
Yeah, it is a fascinating movie. It's definitely one that, even though it is from 1935, it definitely shows its age in some ways, and it has some of those old-fashioned, you're not going to see the blood, you're not going to see the skin that you might see in a modern movie, of course, but this is still not a movie that you still need to be mindful of it before diving in.
Especially if you want to let little kids see it late at night.
Well, it's creepy, honestly.
There are times when it is, yeah.
No,
and by the way, I should have also mentioned, two more things I want to say.
Two more things, two short stories.
Yeah, that's right. One, there's a lot of humor in this.
Yes.
There is a creepy element, no question about it. But James Whale has really woven in quite a bit of humor here, and I think in a way that sort of lightens some of the darker moments. The second thing is, and this is just a little bit of trivia. You may not have noticed if you've watched this film. At the very end of the film,
No one has watched this film.
oh come on,
Not until
there's
now.
a ton of people who've said yes, I've seen this. And at the end of the film, when the Frankenstein creature pulls that magic lever that destroys everything, originally the ending was different than the way it ended up going to the theater. And here's how I know. They have.
You were there at the filming.
I was there saying,
Yeah.
James, you better change it. Oh, well. No, he pulls the lever and everything blows up, and we see some shots inside the tower as it's blowing up, some shots outside the tower as it's being demolished. But the shots inside, this is after Henry Frankenstein and his wife have left.
Yeah.
In the shots inside the tower, they're quick shots. And over on the left-hand side, you can see Henry Frankenstein in the tower as it's blowing up.
Really?
Yes.
Very
And the
interesting.
story goes that basically they changed this conclusion, but then they didn't have the budget to reshoot, so they just left it in there.
Yeah.
So they got like 3 quick shots, and if you look closely, there's Frankenstein, and he's in the shot as everything's being blown up.
Wow, that is
Just a little tidbit
very
for you.
interesting.
Not that it has any point at all, but it's a little trivia.
And that is what we are here for at Plugged In Rewind. We find the hidden images that are in the films that we watch. How was that? That was pretty good.
Exactly, even the meaningless ones.
Yeah. So that brings our conversation. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No,
Mr.
that's
Hoose?
it. That's
Okay.
it.
That brings our conversation of The Bride of Frankenstein to a close. Be sure to read our review. We will have one up when this actually makes it to YouTube.
Yep.
As you watch this, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all those things that we would love for you to do on YouTube. We love doing these talks.
Yes.
These are a lot of fun.
So thanks for joining us.
I don't know if we can use the oh mama.
Oh, mama.